Welcome back to the Herbal Spot, edition 4, where our thematic is the village voices. Those of you who have tuned in to our Herbal Spot would know that we engage around conversations related to the importance of plants to people. In this season, the title indicates that we are gladly engaging around the voices that share with us the richness of biocultural knowledge. And today, our special guest is Saunjean Cutting, who has quite a lot to share as we become immersed in her herbal world. Welcome, Saunjean.
Thank you, Dr. Peter.
Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. I'm going to read from your bio, and this is going to launch us into our discussion. Saunjean is a multi-dimensional person with diverse interests and skill sets. Her first love has always been in the areas connected to nature and soil, and agriculture has always shown itself in her personal and professional pursuits. As an event planner, decorator, and agricultural practitioner, Saunjean has coordinated major national agricultural events. In recent years, she has been devoted to food security, sustainability, regeneration, and herbal or bush medicine, as we reference in Barbados. She looks to Mother Nature for the resources and solutions needed for humankind to survive and thrive. Her commitment and passion for the cause led her to completion of a permaculture design certification and syntopic workshops. Becoming, and very importantly, becoming a member of the Biocultural Education and Research Program. Furthermore, Saunjean fosters and cultivates a medicinal garden where she embraces the modalities of grounding, meditation, and other restorative practices. Saunjean continues her journey of connection with the soil and Mother Earth, growing her knowledge of the application of regenerative agricultural techniques. And her goal is to help Barbados to make large-scale progress in eco-regeneration, sustainability, and the full embracing of our traditional cultural heritage. I hope I did that justice, Saunjean.
I was listening to you as you read my bio, and I was wondering if I could meet Sanjean. I'm going to have a conversation with her after our conversation.
That is so true. She sounds really exciting.
Yeah, she sounds interesting to chat with. Right?
And so the first question I always ask our guests is what was really the genesis of your journey into the culture of plants and their importance? I know that if we look back, there was something that sparked our interest as a child. And I often, in recent times, reference my grandmother as I reflect on how she managed life and how plants were important to her in many different aspects. So, what was that spark for you, Sanji?
If I were to go directly back to childhood, like you referenced your grandmother, I would say my mother in that aspect, because there was always some planting going on at home. There was always, although we live in a very almost urban, in an urban setting, there was always some level of agriculture, some planting. There was always the boiling of a bush tea, a cooling tea, be it sour sop and pear leaf. There was always that going on. But if I must confess, as I came into my early 20s, I would have stepped away from that and have gone more towards the pharmaceutical um, modality of treating anything that came up in my body until I had a couple experiences that made me stop and examine what pharmaceuticals were offering me versus what they may have been adding to me. And I actually had the ridiculous situation of getting a pharmaceutical drug and reading the side effects. And one of the side effects was an exacerbated symptom of the one I was seeking to treat. And that made me stop and go like, this doesn't make sense. There has to be another way.
Mm-hmm.
And then gradually the herbs started to show back up, and you heard something about something that piqued your interest. And I started to explore, and gradually I am where I am now.
That is very interesting. I think we come up to, somewhat of a crossroad or crossroads. And that sort of directs your path, your journey. And I have to confess, of course, I am a chemist. And
Yes, you
I and I share your concern about the side effects of these synthetically derived pharmaceuticals. Now, that does not mean, as some people often say, that once it is in nature, that it's good for you, because we know that there are naturally derived systems that can be toxic.
Of
But
course.
I,
Yeah, because it's growing doesn't mean
yes,
that it is good. And even if it is good for you, it may not be good for you to ingest,
that's correct.
but it may be used topically.
That's
So I would
correct.
think once it's in nature, it has value to offer the ecosystem,
Yes,
but it may not have value for the human body through the digestive system.
beautifully said.
Yeah.
Um, Spoken like a true ethnobotanist, because we have to be concerned about nature in its totality.
Yeah.
But I have been speaking about health justice within that context, because, excuse me, I think that the price that we often have to pay for one of these therapies that have been developed by a pharmaceutical company is often too much and not weighted relative to the ailment that you're seeking redress for.
Yeah.
And it pains
Totally
me
agree.
yeah, it pains me to think that, um, you know, individuals who are stricken with cancer, if you will, that in order to try to get back to a healthy state, sometimes they've got to invest like savings and even, acquisitions in order to facilitate therapy. And though I understand the importance of getting back to good health, because very often it's more about those around you and those that you are very meaningful to. And the individual is sometimes not thinking that much of themselves, but thinking of, children, parents, etc.
Being there
Um,
for other.
yeah, that is correct. So that is something that keeps gnawing at me. And it's one of the reasons why I thought it is important that we speak to our communities and let them know of the value of this heritage that has survived with us, has been important throughout civilizations. And if we can direct them and give them guidance, I think, some of these modalities we can bring to the table and even bring them so that they're available over the counter. I often reference in my discussions the use of the plant pussley or purslane,
Firstly,
which, yeah, that's right, which has been noted as of importance during the period of slavery on island for sore throat linked to upper respiratory infection. And that particular plant is used in Europe. Of course, we know that these plants and their uses are not entirely unique to our Caribbean population. And
yes.
yeah, they're shared globally. But purslane is used to make a tincture that is sold over the counter in Europe. And we are far from being at that level of mindset in terms of fully embracing our heritage to the point where we can offer solutions, alternative solutions, and have them available to the general public. So these are the things that we discuss, especially at our biennial symposium when we bring persons together to share, what they're doing in their professional activity related to this area, what they're doing in terms of research, because that is so vital, and general practitioners. And we were happy to have you as one of the presenters at our 2023 edition, which focused on unlocking the potential of our plant biodiversity for food security, health, and culture. These are all areas that you have investment in as well. And your presentation was entitled Village Voices. And if that sounds familiar to the audience, yes, you were the catalyst for the thematic of this edition of the Herbal Spot. So I want to ask you to tell us a little bit about how you accumulated the data and input for that presentation, and what was your takeaway from that experience?
Okay, no, before I go to that question and my takeaways from that experience, what I have
Yes.
to say to you, Dr. Peter, is that the work you're doing is holy work.
Oh dear. Well, I'm thanking you for that anointment.
When you said, I always thought what you were doing was so important and all that. When you said health, justice, I was like, but this work is holy work. So,
Well, it really comes from my center, and
yes,
I've always felt that, underlying what I'm doing, and I often don't share this because it is really my personal undergirding, is that we have lost so many people. If you think of the fact that there were
oof,
about an estimated 400,000 Africans that were brought to the shores of Barbados. Millions were, I'll use the term scattered, though I don't like to, but across the Caribbean, as far south and north of us. And it's as if we have no connection with these people. These people were the foundation of Barbados. The economy was on their shoulders, literally on their backs,
yep,
1600s, 1800s. And even though on the books there was emancipation, our people were still laboring, doing hard labor and boosting the economy of the island. And it is so unfortunate because of cultural penetration and whatever else may be responsible, that we seem to have no connection with them. And this is my personal investment, that I said I had to do something that would make that struggle more visible. I had to do
visible.
something that would make that struggle relevant to what we are living through in our modern time. And, I really brought that as a passion to what I do. And that is underlying everything that I am doing. I'm giving visibility to the voices of our people from the past. And I am really very happy to have you as a member because I think you truly understand the importance of what we're doing collectively.
And I share that passion.
Fantastic. So now your
Surely share that
story.
passion. When you asked me to prepare for the presentation and I undertook to do it, going into it, my plan was to engage some of the healers that I could locate and primarily focus on how, even though we are on a very small island, 166 square miles, how in various pockets of this island, we may use the same plants, trees, leaves, whatever, differently. Because I wanted to get a sense of, again, it comes out of that same, you said scattering?
Yes.
And even though we were 166 square miles,
Yeah.
there was some level of scattering that occurred.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in some cases, messages that may not have translated coming down through the generations seamlessly and linearly. So I wanted to get a sense of how we may be using some herbs differently. Like say, gully root was one that stood out to me that in different locales, as I spoke to different healers, there were different suggestions for how this bush be used. Some used it purely for physical ailment, some recommended it for cancer, some recommended it for colds and flus. And then there was one healer who specifically recommended it for spiritual reasons.
Okay. Yes.
So there was that. So I was like, that's the sort of information and data that I wanted to collect in going through with this exercise. And the other aspect was for me to be able to give a voice to these people. I really felt that we have so many of these little old ladies, little old men, some of them not so old, some of them not so little, but just quietly going around offering healing and relief options to people on a day-to-day basis, and they're not heard. So I wanted to offer them a voice as I presented rather than my own limited voice. But yes, I got the information on the herbs. There are the differences that we can go into for some of the herbs. But what I got as my major takeaway from that exercise, one was that exercise only allowed me to barely scratch the surface of what is out there for us to learn. Body of knowledge out there is so vast on plants and on their uses and all of that. So I was barely able to scratch that surface to the wealth of the cultural diversity we have. But what really for me was there was that how much of it is still being quietly practiced and put on offer for people to access if they will. There's much practicing and honoring of these traditions in little and big ways still occurring in Barbados. And I was really, really heartened by that result from my experience of preparing for that symposium.
That was indeed fascinating as a narrative. And I share in everything you say because I know that there is a lot of that hidden cultural practice that we need to be aware of. And if only to, again, give visibility to the heritage. I think that we tend not to realize the intellectual capacity that was invested in this knowledge. We think about just going and selecting a plant from what we may call the bush and employing it as a healing modality is instinctive, but that has resulted from, ancient comprehension
Generation.
of
Yes.
nature. That's right, of nature systems. Plants are selected based on where they're growing, whether it's leaves coming from a tree, a shrub, a herb.
A
The knowledge was there in terms
root,
of,
bark.
that's right, the bark, the roots. The knowledge was linked to the cycles, the cycle of day, the length of day, the amount of dew that the plant was exposed to. These are really the parameters that we need to capture and document to demonstrate the depth of investment that was made in the tradition, and that is what is not being recognized. I often say that our people were indeed practicing the scientific method, which is one of making your observations, then conducting your trials, and based on the outcome, you know
Your
whether to
feedback.
adopt, that's right, the practice or not.
Yeah.
And all of that information has been passed down in a very casual way. And because of the casual manner in which it has been passed down, the casual manner in which it has been translated, we do not see the value. And this is one of the targets for us in order to demonstrate that value. And as you know, we also engage in that type of scientific work for validation. As a matter of fact, the National Science and Technology Festival is on, and our presentation is really about the importance of education and research. And I want to ask you this question in relation to an exercise that we were part of recently. There's an organization which is the Women's Alliance for Sharing of Knowledge. And I may not have got that exactly correct, but this alliance makes an effort to connect needs with um, specialty advisors. And so the nonprofit was connected with advisors from well-known media institutions working within the online and social media space. And in working with them, we were able to dive deeper into what we're doing. And we recognize ultimately that we are working for transformation through biocultural education. And I want to
Mhm.
ask you, from your perspective, how important do you think a goal like that is in this modern era, especially when we think about the youth who I call our youthful engineers as they take this into the future?
That's interesting because I didn't know a lot about this, your participation. You said it was a tech to power program,
Yes,
tech to power program.
that's correct.
Um, so my perspective on your participating in something like this to me is that
Mm,
it could be one of two things for work going forward. It could be an enhancer, or it could be a game changer in your ability to reach your audience. I have started to, I don't know if I want to use the word embrace, but accept the role more. Yes, let me go with embrace the role
yes,
of technology.
yes,
We are at an interesting stage of our journey as a civilization.
beautiful.
And while to me, our focus in this realm that we operate on in is for the preservation and the sharing of the cultural traditions and heritage, I feel that embracing technologies and technological modalities would help us, you, I, and the rest of us, to spread that message more efficaciously. for want of a better word.
No, that's a perfect word.
I also believe that the ability to harness the technology will help us to better locate the target audience for the message. I think it will help us better create and curate the message, and it
Beautiful.
would also help us to better deliver the said message. So to me, something like that could only bolster entities like Burp. I see it as something that you can really use to bolster the entity. Because to me, embracing technologies and media tools would allow for greater reach, a more accurate reach. You get better feedback, and ultimately that's what we all want, because feedback allows us to tweak and give people more of what they actually want and need.
Yes, thank you very much for that perspective. This is or rather that was my takeaway as well. Perfectly said. And I think that we need to embrace technology to reach our target um, youthful cohort, because we know that they're well entrenched. And I think
Around.
sometimes, yeah, I think sometimes we don't view this type of progress with the right critical perspective, and we tend to see the more negative side when there is a lot that can be positive from embracing the online technology. For me, it's a matter of how you do so embrace the technology. It's a matter of how you employ the outreach strategies. And of course, most importantly, is the content that you're offering to the young people. And I say youthful engineers because we know that is the case. These are the young people who are going to have to battle with the environmental changes we're experiencing. They're going to have to battle with the full onslaught of global warming, which we are beginning to see aspects of that happening. They're
Oh
going to
yeah.
have to, yeah, they're going to have to deal with the burgeoning issue of food security. We are too dependent on importation of food to the Caribbean.
Please
And
don't.
yes, and Barbados, our agriculture, and this is something that you can comment on as well, as it's one of the areas that you have a great interest. Naturally, our agriculture needs spiking. I don't think that we have really gone back to the importance of the soil and what it can produce for us. And we see more that our land is a surface for construction and not a surface for natural production. And these are all of the challenges that our young people are going to face. And we need to engage them in the conversations. We need to make them youthful advocates, and we need to arm them, with the knowledge that can spur them forward. So, what are your comments there about what's happening within our agricultural space as it relates to having a look at our local resources and making sure that we can feed ourselves, and then also in terms of engaging the youth?
In terms of our agricultural resources, we've hidden behind the narrative of Barbados being small. So the limited land space has been one of the narratives we've hidden behind for a very long time. And it's a narrative that I fault simply through the fact that everyone has a space that they can grow something. I firmly believe that with creative thought and innovations and all of it, everyone has the capacity to either provide fully for themselves or partially for themselves. And I'm guilty of not using my space as well as I should.
Mhm.
But I know that there are so many small space gardening options, from vertical gardens, container gardens, rooftop gardens. There are so many ways that we can change that narrative individually. It does not have to be an edict coming from a prime minister or a minister of agriculture or anything like that. So even from a householder personal standpoint, we can all take responsibility for a contribution to food sustainability and food security. That's my take on that immediately. Yes, I feel that more needs to be done from a policy standpoint to make agriculture make more sense for people who are now doing it commercially. I think and there are some catch-22s in the whole agricultural scenario where someone may say hotels don't buy from local farmers, and hotels may say local farmers do not produce consistently and sustainably. So there's a catch-22 in there that has yet to resolve in the how many of years I've seen agriculture where you have planned production to meet needs and wants and desires. And that is one area in which I think guarantees, insurances, that's the maybe our policy can really come in to help make a difference, to help farmers want to produce more consistently and afford restaurateurs and hoteliers the comfort of knowing that there is a dependable supply, because we have to accept there's a catch-22, because the farmer wants to earn and the restaurateur wants to feed its client.
Mhm.
So we have that. And until that has been resolved, we'll always have that up and down and gluts and shortages and all of that. But
Let me say that you've really hit on many of the key issues that are impacting on the state of agriculture in the island. But my question, in addition to that, was the youth. Um, how important is it? I made my perspective. How important is it from your perspective to engage the youth?
that to me, that's almost like a no-brainer. The youth is tomorrow, let's face it. The youth is tomorrow. So they must be engaged. And that to me has to be done in a way in which they see agriculture as a viable option.
Mhm.
They have to see agriculture as a desirable option
Mhm.
and not an option for the others, the
Yes,
ones who can't.
I
When
like that.
agriculture is truly seen as
Mhm.
a desirable option, I think we'll see a greater shift of the
Yes,
youth into the sphere. And when we really link the technologies to agriculture so that they can see that it's cool to be in agriculture. You can be in agriculture and still explore this technology you may want to explore. Just as we spoke a couple years ago, we were hearing about education not being chalk and talk. We
yes,
have to remove the fork and fork mentality in
that's
terms of
true.
agriculture.
Yeah, that's true. Um, yeah, I don't think that I could have said that any better. In addition to my contribution, there's a lot of innovation going on, and you have described some of it. There's a lot of developments in terms of how we employ science into the things that we do. And I think these are platforms that we need to look at when we are making that desirable option, as you said, for the young people. Innovation and science, I think, are two platforms that we can engage them across. And I think we're seeing more and more interest because of the manner in which outreach is being made. And this is not necessarily through what burp is doing, but this is globally. We're seeing that the young mind is being embraced in other than the more mindless TikTok, if I be negative a bit. I think they're being embraced, and this is in demonstrating what's new about growing your own food.
Yeah.
So I know that you are always actively engaged, and I am really happy to have had this opportunity to have your voice as part of the Village Voices. I have to tell you that it really did inspire me, and I think that there's a big story that can come out of this idea of capturing the Village Voices. And as a member of our organization, I know that your input will take us to seeing that to fruition. And I am wondering if you could just leave with us then. Where are you hoping to take your personal journey from here?
Okay. I see myself as what I've now called a learning leader, and is my desire to continue to grow and share in this area. As I learn, share. I want to obviously learn more about our cultural traditions, learn more about the plants we've been using for healing during that dreaded period of enslavement. I've been reading upon those plants and looking to see where I may find some links for those plants that we use. There were, I think there were about 50 of them in the journal. And I want to start to really document our biocultural traditions in book form. Haven't started, but that's a primary goal for me. But more than that, I want to be able to plan things like events and retreats locally and even regionally, where, we can show more of these biocultural traditions and provide a vehicle for persons to really be able to get back in touch with the value of the traditions and the heritage and embrace it, see it, live it for a little bit, and on all of the levels, both physically, mentally, and spiritually.
That
That's where I want to be going forward.
okay. That sounds very rich. And we look forward to being part of that. I'm happy to hear about your willingness in planning events. Um, there are a couple things that our organization has on the radar. We are hoping to have a biocultural breakfast sometime in the near future. Um, of course, we're going to be drawing on our heritage in this rich engagement with our public. And I know that that is something that we'll be look forward to. And we are also looking at the concept of a biocultural cafe, which is kind of linked to the breakfast. But we want to, again, use events like this to embrace across the discourse and the value of our traditions. Before we leave, Sanjean, is there one plant or maybe two that you have sort of gravitated towards along your journey?
Nettle is one of my go-tos. I just love nettle. For so many reasons. Both for myself and what I've seen it done for others. Nettle is one of my go-tos. In recent times, I would say, blue vervain.
Okay.
So my go-to for I'm not feeling so hot, coldy, flu,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, is a blue vervain, lemongrass as my base, and then I may add a couple other things. But it will always be blue vervain and lemongrass combined, and then I can't without Wonderworld.
Okay. So this is a making a tea then?
Wonderworld, not typically a tea.
Hmm.
Wonderworld, I tend to more pound and extract the juice and use it, or
Okay.
just
But
if you
the blue vervain, lemongrass, that's a tea
that's a tea,
composition?
that's a tea combination for me. So I
Oh
would
wow.
right now
That
I'm
sounds
having
great.
blue vervain, lemongrass, and bay leaf.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to you dropping off a bit of that as an iced tea at my door.
So, actually, that sounds good.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. That sounds thrilling. And maybe we'll feature it at our biocultural breakfast. How's that?
Yeah, we can look at some teas. But then you are the tea man, you are the tea mistress.
Never
So
mind. I am excited by your combination, and we can look at some new combinations, you know. Maybe we'll feature that one at the breakfast.
sounds good.
Great. Thank you so much again, and do have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a wonderful conversation.